couple of landings, couple of hover power checks, and then we came back in because it was fuel and we needed to eat some lunch. So we landed for lunch. First platoon got gas first. Second platoon was already up here. Third platoon, when we landed last, we were the last to go eat, so we were also the last to get fuel. What had happened was they filled everybody up when they got to the last three of our platoon, and they realized that there wasn't enough gas to fill them all up, so they just gave it equal across the board. So we had 5 aircraft, and the 2 aircraft that ended up here were the 2 that had full fuel. The other 3, the one that I was on, we had shorted fuel. So the plan was we were going to fly, do our thing, and then when we call bingo fuel, or when we were out of fuel, we'd come back and the 2 other aircraft would continue on. So we went up the west side and flew until we peeled off, and then we made one more trip. We came around a place called Frog Pass, is right up just a little more north. So they came down Frog Pass, and when they came down, they're flying low level, coming south down the river. So the way that we would fly is called staggered left. They were flying like this. So lead aircraft is up here, Chalk 2 is down here. And if from the air, when you look, this necks really close to the river because we can't fly over the river. So when you pull up, you have to stay inside the river. So you got a big hill over here and the river over there. So when they're coming, they're flying like this. What had happened was lead aircraft started to make a left-hand turn, and the second aircraft got up on top of them. It's called a whoa boy. When you pull up and go, whoa! Okay, so he got up on him like this. So when he got up the top, this aircraft was in a turn. What happened was he saw him up here on top of him, and he turned left. Okay, he banked real hard to the left, which they hit blades, call it blade strike. So you have this high rising terrain that he had to turn into and turn out of. So what happened when they hit the blades, it took the one blade, about 4 feet of it off, and that caused one blade to rise, one to drop. The one that dropped cut the tail off. When it cut the tail off, it unloaded the rotor system. So when me and Ron Peterson came around the corner, that corner right there, we pulled up and all we saw was a main rotor system laying in the middle of the road. Okay, and up to that point, we're looking at each other saying, you know, it's probably just a hard landing, it can't be bad. When we pulled up, the whole system laying on the road and no aircraft. So we looked around and went, what the hell? Well, there's a woodcutter that was here, and he was afraid to go up the hill. Because every time he's seen a movie, you know, if a bug hits a helicopter, it explodes. Okay, so he was afraid it's going to start on fire. So we stopped, and he said, they're up there. And we didn't know what there meant. We thought, me and Ron didn't even know there were 2 aircraft. So we stopped, we got out, and we went up the hill. So when we got up the hill, the first aircraft we got to was Jimmy Teel, James Nichols, and Lieutenant Millen. When we walked up, the aircraft had lost its rotor system and went into the trees and hit and spun, and it put a tree almost all the way through the back. The tree had almost cut it in half from the back. The cockpit was gone. There was no glass, nothing. Jimmy was in the left seat, but thrown to the right side. And Mark was still in the seat. So we started working on Mark and got him out of the seat. He had a compound fracture in his right leg. His right leg was over his right shoulder.
That's Millen you're talking about?
Yeah, Millen.
John Millen.
John Millen.
John Millen.
And so we got him out of his seat and onto a stretcher, and somebody said, there's another one up here. We thought he was talking about crew members. So we broke off from that, and they started taking him down the hill, and we went up and saw the other aircraft. It was upside down, and it went into the trees. It hit a tree and spun and it went upside down. So the pilot, you know, those guys were gone right away. There was no, everybody who made it, made it. Everybody who didn't. Okay, so there's no question that it wasn't a matter of trying to save them or something we could do for them, because there wasn't. Okay, and so what we did is we worked on Roy, took him out. He was still strapped in his seat, and tore out of the floor. So we worked on him to get him out, and then it took quite an effort from all the way through the trees and down through the ditch. The ditch was actually snow about this deep.
It was 20 inches of snow on the level, I remember, so it was hard getting through here.
Very, very tough, and we're wheeling him through, and Roy actually had a stroke on the way down. So we thought we lost him just getting down the hill. And then we got him back in here, and back up and into the ambulance, and we asked, should we get an aircraft out here, and the ambulance people said no. They're going to make it or they're not going to make it right here, and giving them the care that we can give them, moving them again, is not the answer. So they started working on them right then and there. So then we went about the task of finding the key items, finding the crew members, finding the logbooks, finding the rotor blanks, and all that stuff. So I went back up the hill and went through pretty much all of it, and it's hard to describe. You know, those are my close friends. They were my brothers in arms, and to see that, it was very, very difficult. But if there's any piece that you could have, or maybe you could draw from, that whole incident lasted 3 to 5 seconds, and it was done. Okay, from blade impact to impact, and the amount of G's that they spun probably 11 G's, which 9 G's or greater, you're out, you're passed out, you don't know it. So that was so quick that it was that kind of quick, and I can give you that positively, that the people who didn't make it, they didn't suffer 1 second. There was no pain, there was no, if we would have only got here quicker, if somebody could have done something different, there's none of that. You know, and I don't know, I've lost both my sister and my father, and I know what that feels like. I know exactly what that, and I guess I'd kind of want to know. But that's kind of that story. I mean, that day played out in 5 minutes in my memory, and I was up on that hill for, I don't know, an hour and a half, and it felt like 2 minutes. So it was just kind of, it was very surreal. But I don't know if that helps you at all. If that, you know, if you have any questions about anything, I'd be glad to answer anything that you got.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. This is it's a very hard place for me to be. It's very, you know, I've been to war and back. I've seen things that probably you don't really ever want to see, but this still is probably one of the things that is, no, there will never be enough time where this won't be that close to going through. So, you know, glad I could share anything with you. Like I say, you know, when you walk up through, you can kind of see where the trees were, because they cut a lot of trees out when they pull the aircraft out. So you can kind of see where that plays out. But there wasn't a lot of the real small stuff, but a lot of these big trees, that's kind of what they kind of went through. So I'll stop talking and let you guys do what you want to do. You're welcome.
You take a picture already?
Yes.